So poops, in Malaysia, we have the right to decide how you want to educate our kids. You want to send your kid to a national school, you want to send them to a sekolah agama, to an international school, Chinese independent school, private school, lantak lah engkau. We respect your choice, but time and time again, when something like the Rex Tan case happens, then you have people screaming about how UEC is evil and the solution is to hapuskan sekolah vernacular. Let's all study together. Nice for you then, but today we're going to talk about why Malaysians don't trust government schools. When I say government schools, I specifically mean like the SMKs and the Sekolah Menengah Agamas, not like the Chinese independent schools or Tamil schools, but instead the ones that are primarily funded by the government. Yeah, people just don't generally trust them. And you know, you might think that this is really not a serious problem, but I have literally heard parents in the modern age and whom I work with, some of which are working long hours just to make sure that their kids can go to school, and you might ask them, well, why are you so desperate to send your kid to an international school, private school or otherwise? And a lot of them then say, hey, like, times have changed. In theory, government schools are a great idea. Idea being that you can get everyone together of all races and religions together so they can all bergaul from young and build a Malaysian nation. Singapore does that. You have great schools out there like Raffles Institution, Hwa Chong Victoria Institution, and on this front at least a few people will finally go, why can't we be more like Singapore? But actually, it's not really that simple. And this brings us to reason number one, which is that people are scared that if you go to a government school, then you will get an inferior education. In international schools, you're going to be focusing on developing an international skill set, aka speaking English, interacting with people, networking with people, getting a much larger worldview as you experience not just things that the government wants you to hear, while by the way following the Cambridge curriculum, which is much more internationally recognized. So education is the result of a lot of those factors, just interacting with one another, like what you learn, who you learn with, who you learn from, and all of those other things. And whether it's fair or not, people just don't trust government schools as much as they trust schools that they pay a ton of money to, cause 一分钱一分货. You get what you pay for is the intuition, even if that is not really fair. Let's be real, the fact is that Malaysia's PISA scores have been dropping over the course of time, and also, you can talk about how SPM is harder than IGCSE or anything like that, but you can't overturn the questions that people naturally should have about the amount of time that people are spending in religious classes, whether pendidikan moral is relevant, and also questions about people's actual experiences. I can tell you for a fact that when I was in Form 3, and yes, I did study at a government school, I remember an English class in my high school. I'm not going to name which high school it was, but the teacher was basically a Malay lady, and she barely spoke any English. She would literally come to class and she would write stuff on the blackboard, copying it from the textbook, and then expect us to understand, even as she spoke almost completely in BM. And you know what's worse? The fact that for the entire school year, she was only around for half the time because she was pregnant and on pregnancy leave for the entire time. The school never actually gave us a good substitute teacher, and like whenever she went into class, like there was like no point because it's not like she was delivering anything of value. Now that's just one experience, and some people might say that, oh, it's not fair for you to say that all government schools are like that, all teachers are like that. There are so many wonderful teachers in government schools, but the fact is that this is a real thing, and I'm not saying that my experience is like representative of what everyone's going to get, but I'm just saying that people specially try to avoid government schools because they think that this kind of thing is going to happen. And this naturally brings us to the second reason. People think their kids are going to get bad facilities. Now, whether that's true or not is definitely up for debate. I'm sure that you have some sekolah cluster kecemerlangan that have tons of funds, shiny new digital blackboards, the best teachers in the training cohort and stuff like that. But when people look at pictures of shiny canteens and toilets in vernacular schools and they compare them to their own toilets in their own schools, they're not gonna have a ton of confidence in what's actually available, which is partly unavoidable because obviously the government doesn't have infinite money, and well, that's not really a problem so much for private schools or international schools cause they charge a lot of money. And And for Chinese independent schools and vernacular schools, historically speaking, people have always been like contributing towards their alumni associations, which is why you have schools that have entire orchestras, they have like halls that they rent out for a whole ton of things. And frankly speaking, if you are a parent and you want the best facilities, the chance that your child is gonna experience things that they would not be able to experience if they went to a government school, then you might want to go for another educational choice out there. But this brings me now to what actually might be the most important reason, which is that bad things happen in government schools. So perhaps you might think that this is not fair because I'm sure that bad things happen in international schools as well. I'm sure that you have like some spoiled international school kids going out there drinking, taking part in questionable activities. But when you look at the things that are happening out there in Malaysian schools, you might feel to yourself that, well, there's something very wrong going on. Just in the last couple of days, Fadlina Sidak's been going out there investigating extremism in our local schools, and Anwar Ibrahim made a statement about that as well, because apparently 6 kids were going out there celebrating ISIS apparently. Now you can ask yourself whether this really has anything to do with government schools or not, but the fact is you have things like so-called freedom fighter celebration events and solidarity to put politics in school where it does not belong. That makes it so naturally as a parent you have a suspicion that, hey, maybe these people out there in our schools don't actually have your best interest in mind. They want to sway and they want to manipulate you, not actually educate you. And then of course we can't forget the Bandar Utama murder, where that kid went around stabbing his classmate. And of course the big daddy that has not been resolved just yet, which is the Zara Karina case, which stays unsolved to this day. You know, as a human being, when you read about all these things that are happening in Malaysian schools and how the education, the opportunities, and the safety of your kids can be compromised if you send them to government schools, and you can see why it is that a lot of parents, right, they just don't feel like sending their kids to an SMK is a good educational choice. You can argue all you want about how, oh, there needs to be national unity and stuff like that, but do you seriously think that just cause you send kids to a particular type of school, then you can build national unity? Let me tell you for a fact that even in some of the SMKs out there, and I went to an SMK, and sure, there are lots of people out there from different races and religions kind of thing, but there is still this sort of clustering whereby in a lot of cases, people from the same race just hang out with one another, and before you know it, then you have a segregated class. That exists, and you can't deny that it exists because it's very real. Of course, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be opportunities for people to mix and actually interact with people who are not from their own race. But the fact is that if you're gonna do that and also maintain the right of parents to go out there and choose national schools, then you're gonna have to do more. The reason that people end up going to schools like Raffles, Hwa Chong, and so on and so forth is because they are famous. They give kids a good quality education, they have amazing facilities, and parents have a reason to believe that their kids are going to be safe when they actually go to those schools. Can we say the same about Malaysia? Yeah, I think that we have whiles to go. But anyway, what do you think, Sapoops? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. That's all to say about that, and bye.